My name is Jerome Foster II, and I'm the founder of Waic Up. In the spring of 2019, I was an intern for Congressman John Lewis. I was learning about the history of the civil rights movement and how they were able to be so successful in pushing for change. I was talking with fellow interns who were working with him, and we were all understanding that there were so many protests for climate justice happening. There were protests for gun violence prevention, and we wanted to figure out how do we mirror that kind of impact in the modern day time. And we thought of the idea of 1 million of us, in which we create an organization that empowers young people by talking directly to them about the issues they care about, telling them, well, what we need is a movement of young people. We may not have money, but we have the people power to hold elected officials accountable in a way that allows Gen Z to be at the table. And that's kind of how we started and have continued to this day. 1 Million of Us is an initiative that is working to mobilize 1 million young people to vote. It is an initiative within Waic Up, which is a broader organization working on youth engagement programs. The goal is by November 2024 to reach 1 million young people to register and turn out to vote. And because 2024 is the largest voting year in history, we also want to create resources for young people to feel empowered globally to take part in the electoral process. So every year, 8 million young people turn 18 years old and are eligible to vote. And by just capturing 1 million of those people, we're able to create a snowball effect in which our generation feels like it's a kind of challenge in which we are coming together using our power as a united political bloc to kind of force our way to the table in a way. And what was really exciting about naming it 1 million of us is by reaching that number, it allows us to kind of gamify the process. Because voting can feel so daunting when you go onto the homepage, figure out how to check your registration, am I eligible, like what kind of things do I need in that process? But if you make it more fun and more light, that creates that sense of camaraderie with us to keep on going. I think to the young people that feel like that, it can feel very, very daunting. It can feel very disempowering to feel like we are not a part of the conversation and that we aren't included in kind of decisions that are impacting us. And what is impactful to know is that we aren't just afterthoughts. When we come together in 2020 and 2022 and in local elections in 2021 and 2023, we showed repeatedly that we are and should be taken seriously in the United States of America. And we shouldn't just be afterthoughts and speeches, but to be at the seat of the tables in these spaces. And I think what we first talked to a young person about in 1 Million of Us, and specifically when talking to young people, is understanding, why are you even voting? What's the purpose of voting? It's not just to kind of vote for being in the process of a democracy, but voting for a cause that is near to our heart. And I think that's what's very different about young people, is that we aren't just voting for the sake of voting, we're voting for the sake of our future, and we're voting for the sake of our ability to be able to grow old and to enjoy a society which is more morally and ethically just. And I think that's what's really exciting about voting, is knowing that it has the power to change. What I want to say to young people about thinking that we can't make a change and are part of the establishment is to know that politicians care about two things. They care about money and they care about votes. And young people may not have the money, but we have the people power and the votes to impact change. And knowing that is the spark that can live within inside you to know that we need to keep on going. History plays a very critical role, especially within voting, because in the beginning of the founding of the United States, only 20% of people were allowed to vote. It was rich, wealthy white men who owned land who were eligible to vote. And from the movements that have come since, we have now been able to see in the 1960s and 1970s, in which Congressman John Lewis fought and bled on the streets to have the right for black men and for black people to be able to cast their ballot. And that history lives in us today because there 200 years ago of fighting for fighting for basic personhood and dignity shouldn't be taken for granted for today, because we are their wildest dreams. If they were to look at our society today, they'll be filled with pride, and they would be filled with a sense of energy in which we have to carry on, because today we have to continue holding that moral line of justice and continuing to step forward so that our grandchildren, our children will have a society which is beyond their wildest dreams as well, and continuing that moral arc of justice, like Dr. Martin Luther King said. Young people bring a incredibly important side to the table that often isn't included. Within politics, you have to not only be connected to a community, but have the flexibility within intellect to think outside of the box and think about how we can change our society to be more holistic, more inclusive, and to be adaptive to new things that are changing. And young people, we are in that perfect sweet spot in which we can have a multi-generational we can have a multi-generational collective of people that are within our government, but having that foresight as a young person to say, hey, we're thinking about this differently. We're coming from a perspective in which we haven't been indoctrinated into the norms of society. I think as you get older, there's that feeling that these norms that we create become barriers. They become walls which you can't cross because we've been accustomed to that. But as young people, we're starting to see those walls and questioning why they are there and looking beyond them and saying, well, there's a world of possibility beyond that wall that we just haven't been brave enough to reach. And that is what's exciting, is that young people bring that energy. And with the wisdom of older people and their knowledge, coupled with that energy, allows us to have a more flourishing democracy. For people that are under 18, there are even more opportunities to get involved. There are ways in which you can pledge to register to vote. There are ways you can take part in ballot measures and to also impact adults. As young people, we have a moral high ground in which we can send a message to our friends and people who are above 18 to say, I might not have the ability to vote just yet, but you should vote on my behalf. You should vote for the generation that is unspoken. And we can see that in a lot of organizers who are under 18 and people who are pushing for change. They're putting that pressure on adults to say, hey, you have that power. Let's unite with young people to amplify our voices. There's so many things you can do as a young person. The goal is to build a movement of young people and for politicians to include young people in decision making. And the ultimate goal is for us to all be a part of the system and for it to not be taboo or to be kind of not normal for young people to be a part of the process. And the ultimate at the end, we just want more elected officials which can go to a community and say, I represent so many parts of you, not just one part, but I'm able to reflect myself in the people that voted me in. I think that's what's really important, and the goal at the end of 2024 and into 2028 and continuing on.